Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Cerberus at the Improv. We're very excited today. We're actually streaming to our final destination. We have a new YouTube account set up. I'm Peyman Askari. I have with me Mr. Timothy Knight. I'm having audio problems again. How are you doing, Tim?
I'm live. So are you.
Andre, how are you doing?
I'm alive, and well.
The
Glad to
first
hear
15
that.
seconds has been very exciting.
Still,
Tim, I'm going to hand it over to you, and you're going to explain for us what we're going to be doing, but I'm going to deal with these audio issues. Go ahead,
Sure
Tim.
thing. All right. So while generally we have an unscripted approach with our live shows, we did sit down ahead of time and decide what we wanted to talk about today that might be worth watching compared to any number of other similar streams that are going on out there this week. Primarily, we would like to talk about the U.S. election and the Canadian response to that event. While there are a lot of voices in Canada that are very excited about the Trump win and the Republican sweep of the American system, we want to add a note of caution that we should not have too high an expectation to expect this administration to undo all the damage that has been done in the past 4 years and the years prior to that. So we had come up with a bullet list of things that we would like to discuss that show that Trump is not going to be able to do all the things at the pace we would like to see him do. And some of the things that we would like to see him do, and I mean, we as if we were Americans, are not likely to happen at all. The air of wokeness and the air of this oppressive air of bureaucratic overreach is going to come to an end, or at least a 4-year pause, because it will depend on who succeeds Trump. Sorry, a Freudian slip there. But we need to be mindful. There's a line in Alcoholics Anonymous that says basically that the root of all our problems is unmet expectations. So we have to be careful with our expectations. So what people are telling us, if they back it up with actions, then we know we can rely on that. So that's kind of where we're going with our discussion today.
Apologies for the technical issues. I think the gods don't want me to use Bluetooth headsets, so I'm stuck with this monstrosity. I think we should hand it over to you, Andre. You put together some fantastic stuff. So walk us through what happened with the U.S. elections.
okay, but if you bring up the USA election diagram, first of all, I can emphasize on something toward the popular vote. And don't forget what Tim said. Do you remember in 2008 about Lehman Brothers? The bank who is too big to fall. So now the election was too big to rig.
Right.
So we are facing maybe not a landslide, but we're facing a very big change in the, I would say, in the voting results. Like Trump had 79 million popular vote. Harris had 69 million, still counting. I suppose they hired the scrutineers from BC. The Senate will be Republican with 53 seats. The House now is at 210, and if you go on the tab of House, you will see 210, and it's counting. So at the top, if you go at the top, and you will see at the top of your screen, you have
I see what you mean.
you have House, and you see it has changed already. 2011, the majority is 2018. And it goes very slow. I analyze a little bit how it is coming, and there's one particular state that is interesting. It is Arizona. Carrie Lake lost. She was running for governor, and she lost in 2008, 20, and she was in court for about 2 years, trying to prove that they stole the election. And some people pretend that They're trying to steal it again from her. So why I say this? It's because it is not finished yet. The results are not finished, and I expect that Trump will win the House. The Republican will win the House, but we still have to wait a little bit, maybe a month, maybe less, depending on. So because sometimes you have, they go to court because they do disagree with the results. So you still see the card. You still see some pink states that are not finished, and you see some the main on the top right of your screen is light blue, so it's not already called. So I think, but they did a very good job. If you compare this with BC election, they did a very good job, and we'll see what will happen. Like Timothy said, we can expect a lot, but we have to understand when changes are arriving, they will not arrive as fast as we think. I can refer to maybe corruption. I read an article this week about Russia. It was an article that was written in 2004, and they were relating to two types of corruption: the passive corruption and the active corruption. The passive corruption is you arrive to a bureaucrat and you have a problem. He doesn't help you unless you bribe him. The active corruption is that it's the same bureaucrat who arrives and tries to disturb you with stupid rules with your business. So the system is, and we know it. We have the same. I would say the same system in Canada. It will take time to change, and it has to come also from the people. It cannot just come from the administration. People will have to change behaviors, and I expect, you see, woke people, they already started changing their behavior. They cut their hair. Women, they don't want to have sex for 4 years. So there's a lot of, I would say, positive change, if I can say. Sorry, I'll try to be diplomatic. So
I thought that was pretty diplomatic.
That's about it. And maybe the fact that don't forget that the U.S. federal debt is $40,000 billion, and you have a derivative debt now of $29,000 billion, which is, police insurance policies. So the derivative, it is like indicator of trust. So people don't trust those systems, and it will take time. So, but I expect that Trump will have a good team. He will have Robert Kennedy. He will have even, I'm sorry for people who hate conspiracy theory, but Alex Jones maybe will be part of the administration. So that will be funny. First of all, maybe Alex Jones will be able to save Infowar.com. So, and don't forget one thing: since 2016, they attacked Trump. Since 8 years, you think the person will not want to take a little bit of revenge or vengeance about it? There's a lot of people in the administration that I don't say they betrayed him, but I would say it will be a nice show, a tele-reality show. The master of tele-reality, it's Donald Trump. You saw that. So he will not stop for 4 years.
So I wonder how many times the cameraman's going to show him pointing a finger at somebody and saying, "You're fired."
That will be quite interesting. That will be interesting. So
I already saw memes online about people that they want fired. Mark Milley, well, they want him executed. Who's the border czar? Not Kamala Harris. The Department of Homeland Security, Mayorkas. They said that he should be slow walked over the border and handed over to Mexico.
They're more diplomatic than me.
Yeah, I can appreciate the anger and I can appreciate the vitriol, but we can't unload our spleen right now.
Offline we can.
Right, offline. Well, I'm not referring to we personally, but we as a population. We're at a point where we spent the last so long saying we stand for traditional values, we stand for convention, we stand for, operating with, thinking with cooler heads, and so now's the time for action to prove those words.
Well, one thing that will be interesting is toward international diplomacy, because whether you like people or not, when you are a diplomat, you have to be able to talk to everybody. And what the Biden administration did since, I would say, 2 years, and the European Union, I could say it's the same thing. So how they will restore the diplomacy? Maybe they will call and there will be no answer, because
and
toward
if,
Iran, toward Russia, toward China, I'm not. Honestly, I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced. Oh, Trump will stop the war in Ukraine 24 hours. The front is 1,200 kilometers long, and the Russians are pushing everywhere.
yeah,
Nobody can compete with Russia on the ground. So
no,
that's and I can refer to Andrei Martyanov. I can refer to Larry Johnson. I can refer to Scott Ritter. They explain this very well. Xavier Moreau is a French, from France. He lives in Moscow since 25 years. He has a podcast every week. He explained the front. So it will not stop in 24 hours. Maybe the funding will stop, but especially with the new $50 billion loan,
right.
to which will never be paid back. It's not a loan.
Well, it's a loan. It was a loan, and being a loan, it can later be written down.
Exactly. But the big question is, we are facing, I would say, a new Republican administration. How it will affect Canada? This is very interesting.
Canada's contribution to that loan is $3.8 billion.
Exactly.
That's extraordinary.
Well, since 2022, they gave more than 55-60 billion dollars. Sorry, why we don't have this money in Canada? That's a good question.
What do you think what was Chrystia Freeland thinking? Are they trying to secure the Ukrainian vote, or did they get threatened by the US?
That was your first mistake. You assume Chrystia Freeland was thinking.
What's their motivation?
Well, it's again managed incompetence, right? So you go back to the principles of Marxism. What you're doing, if I can make what I'm doing, the bigger picture, totally difficult or impossible for the public to discern, to puzzle out, then that's even better, right? So eventually someone's saying, oh, it's a distraction. Well, it's a distraction from what? It's a distraction from the distraction, but what distraction? And then the public never really knows. The public never really knows. So why is Canada throwing money at Ukraine?
That's throwing fiat money. Sorry.
Right?
What's the value of it?
What is to be gained? What is to be gained? Like who's getting paid? Where's the kickback?
It's like a train that that's it's running full speed. They don't know how to. There's no brakes.
Yeah.
There's no brakes.
Yeah.
They're just going.
I don't understand. So the Liberal Party has a whip. The whip goes to the backbenchers, and they say we're going to send this money to Ukraine. The backbenchers don't even ask why.
No,
I don't even think they use the whip.
Exactly. I agree with Timothy.
Right. So so I mean, the last cabinet meeting, apparently, there were 40 Liberal ministers who went in and were going to give Trudeau what for. And the way I perceive that meeting going down is Trudeau walks in with a stack of binders and just throws them down on the desk, and the binders have all 40 names written on the, like one binder for each complaining MP, and all the pages inside the binders are empty. And he says, get in line. Those pages won't be empty for long. Was
he threatened to kick him out?
Why not? Or worse, put have them charged, expose them for crimes they did or did not commit.
You really think Trudeau's that evil?
Yes.
You know, I will refer to Dostoevsky, the idiot. He's not the idiot of the Dostoevsky. He's like, you know, the idiot of the family, brainless. This man is a pervert. It's not complicated, and I'm not saying this lightly. His psychological, I would say, behavior is beyond narcissism. So I think he is. I would say, he's stuck in a narrative and he cannot get out of it. And he's not the only one. Look at Macron in France. Look at Olaf Scholz. There's a lot of those. Some have resigned. Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand, she resigned. There's a lot of, I would say, the ex young global leader that resigned. So I think Trudeau is stuck there. He cannot go out, even if he wants. He doesn't want to go out.
But it doesn't want to because the delusion is so strong.
He thinks he's like Timothy, the king of the world, like Timothy said. So he doesn't want.
Yeah.
You can see his behavior, and they all. I think they're all afraid of him.
Yes, they are. They're all afraid of him, and the only way for that many people to be afraid of one individual is if enough of the influencers in that group really think he has something on them.
Exactly. So what, like you said, Timothy, I think he will not be pushed out, and you know what will happen. Me, I feel it, and I think we will see in the future. But Mark Carney will arrive.
Yeah, I expect Carney to replace him, and I expect it to be extraordinarily dramatic.
Exactly.
Trump will save us.
Wait, this is the picture of Solzhenitsyn. Oh, nice.
Yes.
Nice.
That's good. Yes. See, there are things that Trump already has saved us from, and that is the continuation of wokeness from the Oval Office. Right?
What?
So there are certain immediate benefits, and that is the downward drive of the Marxist propaganda has been cut off in the from the Oval Office, but it still exists throughout the politic.
Yes,
right?
I agree, but
across TASS,
yes,
right? TASS, so the CCP printing machine, their propaganda machine. It's the Germany did it pre-war in making sure that every home had a radio. Right. And so the beauty of that was once they controlled the radio stations, that they could feed the people what they wanted to feed.
Exactly.
You drop back 400 years before that, and you've got King James demanding that his version of the Holy Scriptures be on every home in the Commonwealth. It's the same thing.
It's the same thing. But don't forget one thing. The Biden-Harris administration are still in power until January 20th. And Rachel Levine still wears dress. So, you know, the image, I would say international diplomatic image on the international scene, it's beyond absurd. I agree with you.
I think that, and this is just guessing, but I think that Trump and his aide de camp will bully their way into these halls prior to January 20 and get things sorted out. So, and I don't expect the Democrats to put up much of a fight. And the reason why I think that is because they are extraordinarily deflated right now. So now while they're feeling their emotional oats, push in. If I was a Republican, I would take that space, push in.
I agree with you, and I think they will fight, but they will fight in court, maybe criminal court.
And you know what?
General Miley made a declaration about the fact that he was afraid that he would be court-martialed. So,
right. Good. I hope he is.
They're starting to feel, the news.
Yeah.
It's a little bit tight. It's not a tie. It's something that's a little bit more tight.
Yeah. So
Andre,
yeah, it
go ahead.
it yeah this is unpopular, but Trump not effectively a whole lot different from Gorbachev based on what he's going into and what he hopes to achieve. Not their personalities or their styles, but the obstacles in front of them, right? Because Gorbachev stepped into a country that was with perestroika, glasnost, very quickly slipping into the an abusive Western capitalism,
You
right?
can you can quote me on that, or you can quote Michael Jones on that about the looting of Russia after the collapse with the oligarch. I was referring to this article that I read.
Yeah.
One thing that is important, I think, is for Trump is that if he has a good team around him, because Trump had a very hard campaign, even if he looks in very good condition, physical condition, but it is hard for on a man. So if he has a good team, he a lot of people were reunited with Trump. You think about Tulsi Gabbard, ex-Democrat. You think about Tucker Carlson. He was from Fox News, but Elon Musk. They're all around him. So that will help him. I think he can count on a lot of people. General Flynn, that's a five-star general that was always be beside him. But that's funny because now you have some like late, I would say late time resistance, like what's his name? Como, not Como, Pompeo, who wanted to see Trump in jail, and now he's expecting to have a job in Trump's administration. Maybe jail guardian, something like that. That could
You
be
find
good.
himself guarding a doing watch outside a public library in Nome, Alaska.
The bias, maybe something like that. But some people they feel it. That in 1944, a lot of people were resistant. Because of course the Germans were losing, so it's very easy to call yourself resistant when the war is won. So I see that now Trump has won. Maybe you will see some people who will start to love Trump.
I think it's a perfect storm. So they won the House, they won the Senate, they won the presidency with the Electoral College. They also got the popular vote. So, Tim, you were saying how the Democrats are deflated. Usually they come out kicking and screaming like children, but they can't do that. You have a good team: Elon Musk, Tulsi Gabbard, RFK Jr., Ron Paul. So these guys are all behind them, and then you also, on top of that, you have the fact that the Democrats completely went way too far to the left, and people are really fed up. Gender ideology, LGBTQ, climate change. So the support behind them allows them to actually make change.
Yeah. It's the even in Canada we notice this quite a lot as well, and that is it's one thing to be liberal. The left is a completely different ball game. Because Canadian culture tends to be just slightly left of center anyway. And that's a human behavior. Most well adjusted, community centric humans, right, will be slightly left of center because that's the more emotive side, the more compassion, more empathy, whatnot. So we tend to be that way anyway. But the classical liberal definition of Western Europe is one thing, and it is that classical definition of a human character that leads to the social reforms that we've experienced in the last 300 400 years, right? Marxism is so far left that the way it executes its objectives or reaches objectives are actually indiscernible from the quote unquote alt right. You get to a point where fascism and communism in their execution look the same.
They look the same. That's a good point. That's a good point. And we think about fascism, we always refer to Mussolini, or we will refer to Franco. I would say fascism has this characteristic of having the same the same stratagem, the same modus operandi as. That's why Hitler and Stalin had an early, I would say, agreement.
Yeah.
What the Molotov-Ribbentrop
Yeah.
agreement.
Yeah.
They thought that they would be able to adjust themselves. It didn't work out because after that, Germany invaded Russia, invaded Soviet Union. So
Yeah.
and it is true. Those are very important, I would say, characteristic. Do we see this in United States? I don't think so. But we see this in Europe now because the European Union is starting to act like, I would say, a fascist superstructure. What they did with Hungary, with Orban, the attempt assassination on the prime minister of Slovakia. You see now they're trying to, I would say, disturb Moldavia. They're trying to disturb Kazakhstan. They're trying to disturb Georgia. Those are influences. Those are international influences. So Trump will have to deal with this too on an international basis. He cannot just. It's not only about Russia, Ukraine. Don't forget about Israel and Gaza. We know that IPAC is present in the Congress.
Yeah.
They influence some people. They say that the real president of the United States, it will not be Trump, it is Netanyahu. So
I'm curious to see what happens if the sick man of Europe wakes up and gets out of bed, right?
Wow.
Because Turkey was once a powerhouse.
That's another question.
So,
Erdogan
like pushing on Georgia, Chechnya, these populations have a fairly high Muslim population, right? So, there are elements that I'm content to let lie, at least until we get our own house in order. And so if you're pushing around on Eastern Europe and the steppes regions, right, the Caucasus, right, you're pushing around there, then in what way are you any different from 40s post-war the West intentionally creating division in the Arabian lands by saying, well, this is where your boundary is? It's the same. You're creating the same thing. You're using geopolitics intentionally to aggravate a population.
Well, we see it in Ukraine, we see it in Gaza, and
Yeah.
I think that Trump will have a lot of work to do, I would say, to reestablish links, diplomatic links. And we know, Putin, I think it was maybe 2 months ago when they asked him whether he would prefer to see Kamala Harris or Donald Trump to be elected. He said, we would prefer to see Kamala Harris. And but he said we will not interfere in the election anyway. Everybody will accuse them anyway. It's not
Of course.
but the fact that he was, I think, Putin is a joker. He jokes all the time. He's very serious, but you can read between the line. And he was saying, well, if Kamala Harris is elected, United States will be weaker. It will be business as usual for us. NATO maybe will collapse faster. And that's good because the BRICS are rising. So now it is Trump. And don't forget, when Putin was elected in 2023, nobody called him to 2024. Nobody called him to congratulate him. And they asked Peskov Wednesday, which is the Secretary of State for Russia. They asked Peskov, will Vladimir Putin call Donald Trump to congratulate him? And he said, no. The United States is a hostile country.
Yes.
So that's a reality, and I can quote a lot of, would say, a Russian commentator. They're not pro-Russian, and they will tell you, well, call me. I will not call you. So call me, and maybe I will see if I will answer. Let's say the red phone. Maybe the Pentagon and the military army in Russia, they're talking all the time. You can follow Martyanov's blog, and then you will understand that it is the link or the conversation, the relation were never broken because they are two nuclear power. They will never break the link. But still, on the, I would say, political basis between Trump and Putin, I think it will be a little bit easier. Then you have the wild card, which is Zelensky. So Trump will have a lot of work, not only inside United States, but he will have a lot of work to, I would say, to reestablish its reputation, if they have one.
Andre, can we something you talked about before we went on? You were talking about how the U.S. doesn't have an industrial base. You're listing the challenges that Trump is going to run into. Could you speak to that?
Well, like I was saying, yes, the federal debt is $40,000 billion, and it is not counting the debt of the states. And it is quite interesting to see that a lot of industries were outsourced, or I would say they left United States. We know this. It's globalization. Then since 2022, the German industry is collapsing 60%. Where do you think those companies are going? They're going to United States. And this is maybe where Trump is counting on that. The fact that all those big companies, some companies like BASF, the company that there's a big steel producer, I forgot the name, they don't want to stay in Germany anymore. Come on, the gas is 4 times more expensive.
Right.
And it is liquid natural gas. They import the same level of gas that they were importing through the pipeline, but it is not liquid natural gas, but at 4 times the price. So all the economy of the European Union, and especially Germany, is collapsing. Where those companies will go? They will go to the United States, but it takes time to be able to, I would say, implement an industrial process or industrial base. You still have a lot in United States, but don't forget that they're using uranium, Russian uranium. They're importing gas, so the links were never broken. But the industrial bases will have to be rebuilt, and this you cannot do this in one term. 4 years is not enough.
No,
it's not enough.
Can I step in with that? Now I have a question. So, Germany and similar Western European nations have been begging Canada for liquid natural gas for years, and Trudeau says, no. So, in what way is Trudeau helping Western Europe?
Trudeau is not helping.
He's not helping Western Europe.
They're not helping at all.
Right? And we have the largest uranium deposits on the planet outside of Russia.
Exactly.
And so, and we're saying, and Trudeau's saying, no, we're not trading, we're not developing. So, who's Trudeau think he's helping?
Himself.
He's hurting Western Europe by preventing trade, at least liquid natural gas. So to biting their nose to spite off his own face. So to piss on Alberta, right, or to piss on the Great Canadian Shield mining operations, to reach his goals here in Canada, so that he gets a seat in the UN Security Council, he's willing to throw Germany under the bus.
You mean the Canada under the Security Council?
Yeah.
It will never happen.
No.
It will never happen. You have 5 members, and it will stay like this. And the international organization are starting to, I would say, they're not collapsing, but they're heavily.
Can I add something? America carried out an act of war against Germany by bombing Nord Stream pipeline. So if you're asking what is Trudeau doing by not helping Germany, well, America's already crossed that line.
That's an interesting thought.
You're right, and don't forget one thing. When Biden arrived in power, he banned Keystone XL. I'm pretty sure that Trump, one of the first thing that he will do, he will re-implement that. And what we will have to do here, what are we doing in Canada? Huh? We're bashing Alberta natural resources. In Quebec, now they discovered that in Anticosti Island, there's a reserve of gas, expected reserve of gas, that is worth $4,000 billion. That's actual the actual value, or because it's part the Anticosti Island is part of the, I would say, the World Patrimony of UNESCO. We should not touch it. Okay, you can still continue to import your oil from Saudi Arabia and boycott Alberta and Quebec. We know we know how it will end. So I'm pretty sure Trump will push the agenda right on natural resources, and that will have a big impact. And it's not the liberal; they will not react. The liberal, they're sinking. We saw Guilbeault, and the Guilbeault is in turmoil right now because he has some stocks, some shares from I think it is an oil company. It's come on, it's ridiculous. It's totally, and they look ridiculous. So they will push. Oh, whether after that it is Poilievre who will be elected here, he will have to work with Trump. The dairy management system.
Yes.
I think they got out immediately. There was somebody I don't remember the name, in the United States. He said, this is not fair. And everybody, all I would say the dairy cartel in Canada is freaking out.
Yeah.
They will reopen the I don't know, they call it NAFTA. It's not North American.
Yeah, I would reopen it immediately.
Immediately. And Trump said it too. He said,
yeah, let's talk about softwood lumber. Let's talk about aluminum. Let's talk about agriculture products. Let's talk about water, right? Let's talk about iron. And Canada is in a sufficiently deficit position to have to leverage its national resources to get back into a acceptable relationship with the states.
With the states, exactly.
And Trump has the ability and the character to bully that into position.
Yes, and I think he will have a good team too. Yeah. So the idea is that you don't have, I would say, incompetent or corrupted bureaucrats who go and negotiate. You have people who really want to negotiate, I would say, a win-win agreement on both sides. And we will have, even if we don't want, I would say, the Canadian government, we will have to face the reality that our exportation, it is what, 75% of the GDP, the exportation.
So then we'll start seeing sovereignty language again.
Exactly.
Right? We are a sovereign nation. We are a united people. And they'll start using all of that language all over again to try to rally support against a bullish America.
Well, and the idea also with this post-national nation of Trudeau will just be buried.
Yeah. So they go that route. The Liberal Party will be completely decimated at the next election.
What do you think is going to happen with the Conservatives? Do you think Pierre Poilievre is going to start leaning more to the right?
He has to.
He will not have a choice.
He has to.
What's he going to do? He doesn't strike me as a guy that's courageous. Like
he's the heir apparent. He doesn't have to be courageous. He just has to say the right things. I mean, look at what he did during his campaign for leadership of the Conservative Party of Canada. He went over to the PPP website, ripped off their policies almost word for word, put on a purple blazer one night, and delivered his messages. He's a career politician. Yes, he's smooth. Yes, he knows what he's doing. His wife giving the opening up the congratulatory speech after the win with the CPC leadership was a stroke of genius. She starts out smoothly, professionally, diplomatically, graciously for a minute, maybe 2 minutes in absolute flawless Ontario English, then breaks into Francophone, and it was as if she was raised in the hinterlands, flawless, and then breaks into, I believe, Spanish, possibly Portuguese. And at that point in time, I'm thinking, this woman would be queen of the world. I'd vote for her myself. But so he has good people around him. He has good support around him. He need only show up. I think that's the idea.
Yeah.
Poilievre need only show up, right? When's the last time you saw him with a pair of glasses on where he didn't look like that kid from the cartoon Dexter's Lab? right? He's a career politician. He's smooth. He knows what to say. He has good team around him. He's got, what's that, Kaczynski, and, or you know who I'm talking, Kinsley, is it? Right. So he has people like this around him to support the program. Harper is still in the wings, right? So
This is what you sound like. You sound like an image maker.
a what?
An image maker.
Well, I hope so.
An image maker. Huh? You take an idiot and you
Yeah.
make it prime minister.
Yeah.
Or you take. Or you, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I'm still waiting to see those private jet flying over the border to come to Canada from all those
Right.
celebrities that
Yeah.
we're still waiting for Bono to jump over a cliff with his car. No, that those, you know, Hollywood was full of idiots and morons. So one thing that Poilievre should do is he should call Trump immediately and says, "Can you give me the plan for your wall? I want to build a wall here too."
Well, Canada does have a wall. It goes up every winter and melts in the spring.
Yes, yes. The funny part is, I will not talk about snow, but the idea is he will have to, first of all, about immigration.
Yeah.
They have to adjust their policy. They cannot.
Yeah.
They cannot say, okay, we will do a different policy than the U.S. because we have a 5,000-kilometer border with them.
Yeah.
Trump will say, you know what, Pierre? Like he says, you know what, Pierre? Do what you want, but I will do my wall.
Yeah.
He will do it.
Imagine if he did want to put up a wall. Who's going to stop him?
Nobody.
Is there a single politician in the country who could stand up to Trump for more than 5 minutes without having a meltdown? Maybe Bernier. They'd probably actually get along. Right?
Most probably.
Right? You know, but there isn't a single political leader in the country who could stand toe to toe with Trump.
You have to give the man credit. Like I said, he's a product of telereality. So the man he knows how to I would say orchestrate a show.
Yes.
And he will do the same thing, but if he's surrounded by good advisor, intelligent people who think and not just I would say dress with a dress or so, you know. What the good part is that, but we saw that the agenda is shifting right. It's not only because Trump was elected about sexual gender identity, about wokeism, about DEI. All companies are going out of this bullshit. So and Trump is, I would say, capitalizing on that. The election, at least, the fact that now he will control the Congress, he will control the Senate and the House. This is a good. It's a very good start. That's the Democratic. They cannot compete with that.
Yeah. From a populist perspective, you could not get a better win. Right. Because and strategically, I wouldn't want a full sweep because I still need some surviving enemies.
You need opposition.
I need opposition.
Exactly.
Right. You need opposition. When you're sharpening a knife, do you complain about the whetstone? No, because I need it. I don't get sharp without the whetstone.
Exactly.
Right. So there's a line from a movie where the hero is being offered the opportunity to have his pain taken away, and he says, "Take my pain away. My pain is part of me."
That's that is Jorge Borges, Nobel Prize of Literature, and he wrote that in a short story. Like you said, the doctor says, "We will give you. What about the pain?" He said, "Take care of the wound. I will take care of the pain."
Right.
So that's one thing. Maybe I would like to talk about. We were talking about the industrial base of the United States. It will take time. But don't forget one thing. There's one thing that Trump should look at. It's the Federal Reserve. Because the Federal Reserve, who controls the money, controls who has power, or who controls the media has power. So what is happening with the Federal Reserve? What will happen? It's supposed to be, it is private because it's supposed to be separated by, let's say, the executive power. But are they bankrupt? Will we see a devaluation of the American dollar? If the money is devaluated, the debt is devaluated. So that's why there were a lot of countries that were trying to get out of U.S. bonds because China did it, Russia did it. A lot of countries, they started to and adopt maybe another international currency, which is that now it's the U.S. dollar. But if Trump does not deliver, I would say, the merchandise, if does not deliver, I would say, the promises that he did, how will the market react? We saw the next morning the Dow Jones was up 5,000 points. It was like everybody was celebrating.
Yes.
But then after that, you have to come back to reality. Do we have an industrial base? Don't forget that the American economy is financiarized. So
the rebuilding and strengthening the industrial base, particularly for consumer goods.
Yes.
Right. I think would be very, very good for America. And because then you're creating, you're creating middle-class jobs. Thanks, Trudeau, for that. But you're creating middle-class jobs that are going to offset devaluation. Right. So if he reduces taxes at the middle income level and gives people more available, distributable, more income to spend locally, then that will create a stimulus. And that, not necessarily that alone, because it's going to depend. I guess what I'm saying is he should bring in a policy of protectionism. I think a more protectionist policy. And then, of course, the media is going to interpret that as closing the borders and anti-free trade and, anti-globalism. And well, that's because it is. Right? The solution to rampant inflation and rampant, having to inflate and deflate on a regular basis or an irregular basis, the solution to living under that as a civilian is to close your borders. So the solution to globalism is tribalism. And so you need to get in front of the camera properly. I keep moving around.
You're shifting to the right.
I'm shifting. We're done. Thanks. Good night. Yeah. So the solution is you take your natural resources and you develop them yourself, and you prioritize local production. Right? And that's the way out of this. The Federal Reserve will fight that because they make money the more money that they print. Period. Yes, nationalism. Right? So the solution to globalism is nationalism. I'm using the word tribalism because I'm using it in a more psychological perspective. But yes, nationalism. And nationalism need not be a negative status with between nations. The standardization is useful between nations, but the nation should be permitted to develop its own resources, its own culture, its own policies, its own perspective in its own fashion. And I think Trump's, having been a businessman his entire life and not a legislator his entire life, is going to be reflected in those policies. The same thing he did the last time. It is not productive for him to be throwing local money out to Afghanistan like was happening, which is why he pulled away. And now my camera wants to wander somewhere else. So this is my fun day. So I guess what I'm saying is I think that Trump will move in a more protectionist direction.
Oh, you're right. He will. And, nationalism is not, I would say, a taboo word. It's not a bad word in itself. We have to understand what is the concept of nation. And I think it is you, Timothy, who referred a little bit a while ago about provinces in Canada who are sovereign, or maybe it is you, Peyman, Canada is a federation of sovereign province. So this, I would say, the word nation or nationalism is very close to sovereignty.
Yeah.
Do we have sovereignty? Do we protect our border, our people?
Yeah.
Trump is always talking to Americans.
I just want to add one thing. Trump, he's not the same Trump of 2016 or 2020. He's
More
very
sophisticated.
maybe. I mean, maybe somebody told him like you can't talk about you can't say the truth if you want to win. So he's just telling us what we want to hear. But I don't hear him criticizing the FBI. I don't hear him criticizing NATO as much. I don't feel he's as anti-war as he used to be. Like he's pretty pro-war on Israel. So I mean I have a feeling somebody got to him. So if you want him to take out the Federal Reserve, I don't see that's happening.
No, I don't say it will happen. I say he has to question it. He has to question, I would say, the institution, American institution. Let's talk about the NSA, the CIA, the FBI. The FBI, they are on the spot now. Don't forget, you say Trump is not the same man that he was 8 years ago. Peyman, if somebody would try to assassinate you 2 times, maybe you would not be the same man. So you would react. And I think, I'm not saying Trump will go for vengeance, but he will not let those, I would say, structure, they will not stay the same. He will have to make changes on those. They have too much power, and they are also too independent from the, I would say, the political. The Congress is manipulated by lobbies everywhere, and those agencies like the CIA, the FBI, they are, I would say, practically private entities. You have some revolving doors between Blackwaters, who became Academy, and they go out and in from the administration to the private sector, and it's incredible in the United States. We see it maybe on another level in Canada, but so Trump will not be able to change all that, but he will have to restructure those agencies, maybe to weaken their power. They're too powerful. Whether it is in the Middle East, Ukraine, they compete against each other. They compete against each other for the budget too. Don't forget, it's a $1,200 billion budget a year.
I'd be interested to see what the Congress, what move we see from them. Are we going to see something like a Kash Patel go in there and start investigating all the different branches of government, or are they going to start blocking Trump like they did in 2016?
I don't think the Democrats, or I would say what we call the deep state, you can call it any names you want. There's a lots of names you can use. I don't think they will go after him. I think now he's too powerful. Don't forget that in 2016, when he was elected, he had the Republican Party against him. Now, like he said, he cleaned a lot of, I would say, false Republican. You can look at, for example, Mitt Romney, who said that he would vote for Kamala Harris. You say, wait a second. But whoops, to Sigabart shift with Trump. So you see some people, you see some interesting change. People, they had to take off their mask. And now, because they're unmasked, Trump can say, okay, he can remove them from power, from the organization, without punishing them. It is not necessary.
I don't know, Tim, do you want to add something before I was going to transition to the other Trudeau message board system?
The more Canadian focused topics. I think Trump's first term was very Mr. Smith goes to White House, Washington, right? The old black and white movie, and now I totally forgot the actor, but it's going to Washington, from the suburbs, thinking he's going to change everything, and then ran into the machine, right? And I think that's what happened to him first time. And my camera is doing that again. So be it. No, wait, when in Rome. And because I'm mirrored, I'm totally backwards. There we go.
It's a Democrat camera.
Right. So this is what it looks like when you cross the floor. So I think he's much more. It's funny to say this about a 78-year-old man, but I think he's matured. I think you go to that much, spend that much time in courts, and go through that mill. That's going to change your perspective. It cost him $4 billion to come through that. If you didn't learn one thing, after spending $4 billion to keep your name clean against the largest legal machine on the planet, I think he's become more sophisticated.
Fair enough. What's on the topic for us next, Tim?
The 3 PMO items that came up. So this web page is from the Prime Minister's office, which is a department that manages his PR and his itinerary and whatnot. The at pm.gc.ca, he publishes these news wires on a daily basis, sometimes more than one a day. The public can get these as an RRS feed or sent to their email on a regular basis. These news wires that are published are what the news media get and from which they put their spin. So we as civilians can have this sent to our email on a regular basis, on a daily basis, and we can see what the actual news is from the office in the PMO's own language, the Prime Minister's own language, before the news media gets to put their spin on it. So 3 items that I found yesterday that speak directly to our conversation regarding the USA and Trump are these 3 items that I'd like to bring up. The first one is Trudeau reestablishing the Cabinet Committee on U.S.-Canada relations. And if you scroll down so we see the whole name, the whole list. Yeah. So these are all familiar names, right? So it's interesting that they say reestablished, and I'd like to hear more about that from them. So these names are going to be on the committee specifically struck to reestablish Canada-U.S. relations. And it'll be interesting to see how each of these names and Trudeau speaks publicly about Trump and his administration leading up to January and, of course, after January. So.
All right, what's the next one?
The next one is Trudeau doing damage control. Remember, he said something in his public congratulations of Trump said something about trying times or changing times and whatnot, where he's basically telling his listening public, we are more afraid now because bad orange man has become king of the world, so we're all afraid. And speaking with a European, with what's her name, von der Leyen.
Von der Leyen.
Yeah. So is an attempt for him to reestablish Canada's importance to the EU and the European Committee. So the language such as the second paragraph, the 2 leaders discussed issues of shared interest. Well, the shared interest is we're not happy about Trump, right? Reaffirming the commitment to working with the United States. That's political language for we don't have to like it, but we do have to toe the line. Other allies, international partners, promoting security and stability. These are trigger words, right? This is dog whistling to the leftists of the planet, saying, we're not changing our tack. We're keeping our rudder straight. We're going to do our best through these trying waters. And so again, unwavering support for Ukraine in the face of, and again, Russia's illegal unjust. So again, reiterating tired old language to reassert their importance to the European Union. And so this is being public this is him stomping his feet at the White House saying, you're not my real dad.
Well, there's one thing that maybe we could we could comment on. And when you said the committee commitment to working with the United States, I would say for the United States.
Yes.
No, come on, they're vassal. What you even von der Leyen, she declared that she said, okay, we will have now to support Ukraine alone. It means that okay, you will impoverish all European Union people to support a fascist regime.
Yeah.
Go ahead. It will be very, very interesting to see how Trump will react to that, especially maybe toward. We can talk about NATO, about the percentage of the GDP that Canada puts in NATO
That's
or
right.
the European Union. He will come back with the same
Yes.
message he had in 2018 or 19. He said, "We will dismantle NATO if you do not finance it enough." So,
Yeah.
you think he will not have changes because MAGA, Make America Great Again.
Yes.
Says, okay, no problem.
That's right.
I will not put as much money as I put now because you don't do your part.
Yeah.
I'm starting to sound like Trump now. So.
But it's true. It's true. The United States is like 3/4 of NATO's budget.
Exactly. So what do you think will happen? He will just push again all his NATO allies to, I would say, to
do their part.
Do their part.
Yeah.
And they cannot. They cannot. European Union, they're all sinking. So it's not complicated.
And they can't do their part because Trudeau won't sell them liquid natural gas.
This is exactly
like everything is so tightly interwoven.
Exactly, but this is globalism. That's what they wanted. They wanted integrated economy, integrate policy everywhere. So those international institutions, the World Health Organization, but just the United Nations. United Nations now they have a great, I would say, a great competitor, which is the BRICS. And
so, Tim, I was kind of alluding to this earlier. So, Andre, you just used the word vassal.
Yes.
When I said why is that they nuke the Nord Stream 2 pipeline and then Canada refuses to sell oil, what I meant was, or natural gas, why would America tell Canada not to sell natural gas to Europe? Or another way, why wouldn't America just come in and say, Canada, sell natural gas to Europe? They're our allies.
They will do it. No, they will not.
Can you imagine attaching that to NAFTA?
Maybe, you don't forget one thing. If they want to relocate some an industrial base, they will propose all those big companies in Germany to come back to the United States with, let's say, free or cheap energy. So, and they will move, but it will take time. So
yes, it'll take a generation to dig out.
And who will compete now? Canada can Canada compete with United States on this basis? If we would develop more our natural resources, yes, we could. Maybe not compete, but like Timothy said, with NAFTA, we could collaborate.
Yes.
And I would say, Make America would include Canada.
Yes.
Make America as a continent great again would include and maybe Mexico too.
Yes. Yeah.
So
yes. And sinking the EU is the plan.
Exactly, he's right.
It is the plan because
it is the plan.
The European Union represents the last of colonialism.
Exactly.
Right? So you can't have one world government if anything left of the EU stands. So whether world players, for example, Trudeau, withholding trade of liquid natural gas to Germany, who desperately needed to maintain critical development infrastructure. And then so Germany suffers and their infrastructure and their industrial base starts moving over to the States. Finish the loop. Who's telling Trudeau not to sell liquid natural gas? It's not China, right? It's not Venezuela. It's not England. Why was he?
Can I jump in? I want to put all the pieces together. So we have the United States takes out Nord Stream. Let's just assume they tell Canada, don't sell them natural gas. They turn to the EU. They say, whatever money you have left, send it to Ukraine. And then NATO somehow ties into this as well, just to completely undermine the EU.
What if NATO becomes the next version of the EU?
How could you tell the difference?
Right? Because
you're
what
right.
does
There's
NATO
no
want?
difference.
NATO wants boots on the ground in the old DMZ.
This is another issue, the demilitarized zone. I think that nobody will negotiate on that. They will not.
You're talking about Ukraine?
But they will not. Come on, the Korean solution. It will not happen. If it happens, it will be to the benefactor of Russia. Russia will never let Ukraine enter NATO. This, I would say, I don't know if Donald Trump understands that, but there's a lot of people in the US who understands that.
The nation of Ukraine, sorry to interrupt, the nation of Ukraine is the largest single geopolitical structure in Europe.
It's always the battleground. And don't forget, we can talk about BlackRock, but they discovered a big mine of lithium there. So you can imagine in the east part of Ukraine, which is the Donbass. So why they are fighting for the Donbass is because the lithium that is there was supposed to fulfill I would say the climate change agenda with EV cars and everything. Now it's collapsing. You look at Nordvolt in Quebec is collapsing, and all the major companies that wanted to invest in electrical vehicle they're pulling out now. So
I have a question that just popped into my head. What if the Ukraine is basically Afghanistan but in Europe?
You're right. That's a very good comparison. Very good comparison.
Right?
And maybe not for the good. The I would say it is not good for Russia because Russia lost a lot in Afghanistan.
Well, and I'm referring to, of course, Ukraine going back 300 years.
Yes.
Sorry, Afghanistan.
300
years, right? When it was the Afghanistan was the chessboard between the Russian bear and the British lion, because they had two Afghani wars, and that's basically around the birth of America they were fighting over it. So and the first thing that an American company did once taking Afghanistan after routing the Taliban was get Halliburton to build an oil line,
exactly.
which is what Russia had been trying to do for 40 years.
Well, there's one thing that is interesting when you look at I would say the zone of influence. The zone of influence of United States. You have Canada, but you have European Union. Then there's a border. You have the zone of influence, the Asian zone of influence. That would include Russia, but Russia is always, never sure if they are European or Asian. This is quite fascinating. You go back to Peter the Great. It is quite interesting when he opens St. Petersburg, how he developed the European side of Russia. When you look at the zone of influence, Great Britain now is present in Kazakhstan, in Uzbekistan. They open universities, and they try to influence all those, I would say, satellite of the ex-Soviet Union. So United States will do the same thing. And they try to keep, like you say, boots on the ground, or maybe not boots, but like they say, consultant or advisor. But we know that NATO is in Ukraine now. We know it. It's not a secret anymore.
No.
Then officially nobody will declare war to nobody because they know what
NATO stepped into Ukraine with the 2014 coup.
2014, exactly, with the
Maidan. That's when NATO stepped into Ukraine.
10 years ago.
Yeah, right. So that's yeah.
So about the demilitarized zone, if they agree on that, the condition of the Russian is very simple. You demilitarize Ukraine. Ukraine will be neutral and will not go into NATO. That was the condition that Putin said in 2022. Yeah. how Trump will react to those conditions. That's a good question. Will he react differently than because Biden is always dancing around and saying that, oh, it is not ready. Stoltenberg, who was the ex leader of NATO, now it is Mark Rutte. They always say, oh, yes, Ukraine will enter in NATO, but not now, never now. It's like Turkey with European Union. It's been 25 years, they're waiting. And Erdogan said one day, he said, if you don't do it, I will unleash 5 million immigrants in European Union. So they all play this game.
So then if I never name the theater of conflict, right? If I never give it an identity, if I never say whose side it's on, we just go into the theater of conflict. It's Cold War.
It's Cold War.
Cold War. It's Cold War antics, right? So it's the wall comes down and the West says, well, we have no more enemies and all of our spy movies change our villains and everything. But the realism is we're going into places like Ukraine and we're still acting like it's a James Bond movie from 1976.
Yes, and I read a book. It's about the history of Russia until 1917. It's from a very, very well known Belarus writer who died in 1997, and he was describing since the beginning of Russia or the beginning of the empire, or whatever you call it, the Rurik and the after that the Romanov. He was describing how diplomacy works. And it's exactly what you're saying. Actors change, but you will make an alliance today with somebody because you have your own interest, but you have another treaty, and you will have to resiliate this treaty, and they always follow their own interest, which we could say it's sovereignty. Yeah. It's sovereignty up to a certain point. And in Europe, it's even more obvious. Here, it's not the same context, but in Europe, they're always trying to have, I would say, national interest. Look at Orban.
Canada does do that.
He never condemned the intervention, the special military operation. They're always very careful, and they're influenced. You see this also in Azerbaijan, and you see this in Armenia. They're influenced all the time. They play, but they try to follow their own agenda. First of all, it's not easy to follow. It's not. For a simple citizen, you look at that and you say, okay, I can imagine the Prime Minister of Canada trying to understand the scheme that is going, or the game that is going. You need to have a little bit of, I would say, education, historical education, which he doesn't have. He's not alone in that.
I was going to ask again, what's the end game here? You want to impoverish Europe, and who's going to fund NATO?
New World Order.
Yeah, but who's the New World Order?
Nobody knows, and that's the idea, right? Maybe it's one great big. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but maybe it's one great big grand overarching, the unified theory of conspiracies, right? Where inevitably we're moving to a single organization that effectively manages and administers the affairs of the planet as if it were a single political entity. Well, but humans are humans, and it won't work. You're creating a utopia that, whether you use it's a form of capitalism that does this through probably some type of a combination of technocracy and oligarchy, right? Or whether it's through straight up.
My question was much more pragmatic than that. If Europe is 50% of your economy, Europe and America, and you destroy that 50%, who's going to fund NATO now? Is America going to print twice as much money?
No, they cannot. NATO will disappear. It's NATO had to disappear when they ended the Warsaw Pact after the collapse of Soviet Union. And that's why Putin will never negotiate with the United States, because they betrayed their what they say oral promise, and they always said that there was no document that was supposed that they would never extend NATO. Look at NATO in 1948 and look at NATO today. They're surrounding Russia, and now they want to aim with influence in the bottom of all the satellite of Russia. They're trying to play the same game all the time. This is typical, I would say. This is typical British intelligence too. Huh? They try to organize something that it doesn't look like it. So financing NATO, even Trump said it. He said, "Why NATO? Why NATO? Europe, defend yourself." He was saying this at the end of 2019 when he was practically threatening all his allies that they were not funding enough NATO. So
I always thought that the purpose of NATO was to secure the U.S. hegemony, so America has access to markets. Yes, they can bully Europe around, but they get markets to the former Soviet bloc.
No, you're right, but it is not working anymore.
Yeah, but now we're talking about the U.S. is destroying those markets. Are they destroying competition?
I think they understood that the U.S. dollar as a reserve value or an international currency for trading doesn't work anymore. And now, if they don't react, it will implode or it will explode in their face. We're facing devaluation. If you compare the American dollar with gold, there's a devaluation since about 25 years. So they're starting to understand that it took time, but they're starting to understand that they have to sacrifice somebody. They will sacrifice Europe.
Bring up
for their own benefit. And United States, they always say it's a continent that is talk about United States. It's a continent that never went to war in reality. You never have war in United States. Okay, you have civil war, but you never had a real conflict like the Second World War. So, and I think they understood that they don't want that. They don't want boots on their ground.
Yeah. Bring up
that's my opinion. Maybe it's only speculation, but
bring up Ash's comment. I'd like to speak to that. You mentioned the surprise that we're treating Trump or Biden and Trudeau as if they're individuals capable of thinking and breathing their own and I can appreciate the comment about the puppetry, and yes, there are elements of that, but the best puppeteer puppets without the strings. So people have to be permitted to do their own thing and make up their own minds. If you have enough control of the system through an arm's reach agreements and through arm's reach influence, then I can guide an individual to produce what I want them to produce through arm's length behavior. I don't have to directly go to that individual or to their aides and say, make sure that so-and-so is standing on such and such a corner at such and such a time, and really says that. So the problem with conspiracy theories is that's all they are, is theories. Right. So what we're suggesting is that these individuals have enough autonomy to still be self-absorbed, as opposed to completely committed to this overarching New World Order goal. Right. So Trump is still self-absorbed enough to believe in his own vision, even if that vision has been fed to him over time. He still believes in it to be himself. Call him a puppet and he'll laugh and ask if you want another cheeseburger. Right. It's the fact that men at these levels can be controlled should be no surprise. Should be no surprise, because here we are, us guys of, the three of us and our friends and our families and our associates, we are easily manipulated too from arm's reach, right? From arm's reach. I can't go to Italy tomorrow. I have to appeal to somebody else to give me a passport in order to go. So that makes me a puppet of who? So fed to him by who? Yeah.
Asha's going at it with you.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's good. That's clever. Yeah, that's clever. I don't have the smart ass remark for it though.
The comment is good, and we all know that, I would say, puppet, but they have to keep the illusion, I would say, the illusion of democracy, the illusion of sovereignty, the illusion of parliament. And of course, they always pretend that they are elected by the people and they do the will of the people, but it doesn't exclude the fact that you have big structure behind that are controlling through lobbies, and they are controlling all the aspects. That's why I say Trump will arrive with a good team. Most probably his team will have to look at those links. Look at those links. Who has influence on the Congress? Who has influence on politicians? Are those influence too powerful to I would say to manipulate the national policies? Trump, he could say, for example, we will make America great again. We will reindustrialize the United States, but you have strong foreign lobbies, especially since 40, 50 years, with this global agenda. How he will deconstruct the climate hoax narrative? Yeah, so people, you say to anybody, anywhere, you say it is climate hoax, they will say that you're a conspiracy theorist. But now it is a fact. We don't have consensus. We don't have a scientific consensus on climate change. So that will be more, I would say, it will be publicized. And I think the movement will change. It will be the same thing with the woke agenda. It will be the same thing. All those, I would say, those utopia, if I want to be polite, those utopia will start to collapse slowly. The tower is falling. Where it will fall? Yeah. I think he will have 4 busy years. Yeah, busy years, because and I don't think that I have the feeling. I think 2008, the globalism was finished with the crisis, and they have this concept, economical concept, the double dip. It's a W. And I was looking at this in 2011, and when the market was coming up, and then it dipped again with the crisis in Greek, and all the economists were saying it's the double dip, the W. Mm-hmm. And it dipped again. The globalism is finished since 2008, but the animal took 16 years to die, and it had to go through the first crisis. I would say political crisis was the first election of Trump. They were expecting to financiarize the economy, to push the globalization. Everybody was going in this direction, and Trump put a stop to that. Then 4 years after, I think the globalists thought that it was in the bag with the pandemic and everything, and whoop, suddenly. So my feeling is that globalism was already, it meant not dead, it was very, very sick, and now Trump will just bury it. And a lot of people who talk about globalism like it is the past. Even Yuval Noah Harari. This
do not mention that man's name here. I don't want to vomit this early.
No, but it's normal. He said in an interview, I think it was in 2022. He said, if Trump is elected, globalism is finished. And I quote him. So it's not. They know it. We know it. Then, do you have all the population in the United States, in Canada, in Europe? We can see it. The movement, it's not only because it's shifting to the right. It's a people's movement. They say enough. Yeah. And I think Trump is the archetype of this.
I want to put a question to both of you. It's in line with what we're talking about right now. Colonel McGregor, he said something to the effect of 25 years ago, Israel did not control our president, but today they do. So when do you think America went wrong? I'll start with you, Tim, but do you think it started 2008, 1945, Civil War? Like, what would you say?
Where America started to go off the rails as far as like its relationship with other nations?
Well, no, it's like what's going on with NATO. Like we're talking about climate change, but I'm looking at NATO and the EU, like whatever they're doing to Europe and in Europe, that is not what the voters want. Like when did we get that disconnect?
The let's see there, FDR. I'm going in that direction too. As a matter of fact, I'm going further back. I'm going back to 8 warships landing in Tokyo Harbor, aiming their guns at the town, saying, "Do trade with us or else." That's how far back I'm going.
For the
Right?
benefit of the audience, well, what year
Right?
was that?
So I don't even remember what year. It was the 1700s.
Oh, come on, man.
It was what the end. No, I'm serious. Like,
No.
so it was basically toward the end of the Japanese protectionist period, the isolationist period, and I think it was 8 American warships sailed up to Tokyo Harbor and sent an emissary out to them and said, "You will start to do trade with us or else," and forced Japan as a nation to begin to do trade with America. And then you have fighting with the Spaniards over the I'm going to forget the word now, Philippines. Right. So these are all test beds going back to the way that America ran roughshod over Japan after the Second World War. Was an atrocity. It was an atrocity, right? And it's the well, among other things, the mere cultural disconnect, the cultural disrespect alone was astronomical. So to be surprised by America's on again, off again relationships with other nations in the European Union itself, or even with England, shouldn't be a surprise. I mean, how long ago was it before they refused to call them French fries in the White House? Called them freedom fries. Like, how mature is that? It's not, but they're making statements, right? So where they can't make a financial statement or a political statement, they'll make cultural statements, and that's human nature. I'm gonna get in so much trouble for this. The problem with Israel, and I will say it flat, is Israel as a geopolitical structure today is not the Israel as was commissioned in Scripture.
You mean 1948 or before?
No.
This is where it's becoming interesting.
Like, you know, to go back to the establishment of Israel as a nation, which is around 1200 years before Christ.
I know that's very important. That's very important what you're
right. And the West is attached to a geopolitical structure and using a misunderstanding of Scripture as its basis.
Yeah. You know the concept of nation is a concept that was invented in the 20th century. Before, we didn't have that. It was territory. And when you arrive with Israel, we can go and then we can take the religious angle.
Yeah.
To understand why the political agenda is like this or the economical agenda is like this. It is not only an economical conflict. It is a religious conflict. And it is something that we have even Netanyahu in his speech in front of the Congress, he said that it's not new. So when you look at Israel is now it is funny. We don't know if it is Israel who's controlling the United States or United States that is controlling Israel for, I would say, economical purpose. I would suspect, and this is only an opinion, that Netanyahu wants to control United States with a religious aspect. And I would suspect that the United States wants to control Israel in the Middle East with an economical aspect. I think they are two different concepts, and we have to observe how they will react now. It's not, we know what is happening in Gaza. We know. And now it's strange because we don't hear about Israel anymore. And there's a big conflict now in the Knesset because the ultra-Orthodox who are usually exempt from military service now, they will be probably forced to be enrolled in the army. And one of the ministers who is an ultra-Orthodox is, I will block this bill. So it is a conflict directly in Israel, and now they have big problem with the Hezbollah. So Trump will not be able. Trump will have to deal with those issues. diplomatically, if he's a man of peace, and maybe Peyman, you said he was very against war in his first term, and he was trying to influence Iran, and now he will have to. He arrives with a planet that is full of conflict. It's Cold War 2.0. He will have to arrive with a peace agreement, even if it is not satisfying for both parties. Sometimes it's better to have a bad deal than no deal at all.
I think one of the effective ways to deal with this, be it Ukraine or Israel or anywhere else like that, is that if the allies of those who are directly involved in the conflict, and I mean allies on all sides, simply say, we're done funding this, sort your stuff out.
It's very simple.
So, right? So I just simply bring my soldiers home, I bring my advisors home, I pack up my trucks and my ships and my planes, and I bring them home. And say,
are you talking about Israel?
Anybody. Right? So
well,
the allies of to simply pull back and say, we're done fighting your war for you. You have not sufficiently satisfied the goals that were set out. We're stepping back.
I think it's the other way, though. I mean, I look at it, we're not fighting their war for them. They're fighting our war for us. Like Ukraine, the U.S. is funding a mercenary army. Israel.
The Ukraine is? With what money?
What did I say? No, the U.S. is funding Ukraine as a mercenary army.
Then pull it. Well,
well, are they financing?
You're asking the bad guys. You're asking the bad guys to stop being bad guys.
No, but your comment is interesting. U.S. is financing Ukraine, or they're financing the industrial military complex in United States. There's a big difference. There's a lot of money that goes in the to
right.
modernize the.
I'm gonna quickly say what I think is happening. I think they fought a war in Afghanistan for 20 years, and they just can't get their American people to fight any more wars. And they're like, all right, let's take that money that we had for the U.S. Marines, spend it on these poor Ukrainian men.
Yes, but you understand, fighting and I will refer to Andrei Martyanov again. It's fighting people with a turban in the mountain of Afghanistan. It's not like fighting Russia on the ground in Ukraine. It is two different things. And now I think after 2 years, they wanted to destroy Ukraine. I remember John McCain. He was referring to Iran, bomb Iran 15 years ago. And now they're facing reality. So if Trump is a little bit, I would say, reasonable, rational, you will understand that the next step, I would not say it is a nuclear conflict, but it would be a very severe conflict between two superpowers.
Well,
he cannot discard.
The litmus test in politics is integrity.
Do we have integrity in politics now?
Right. And so those who have integrity should be the ones we support.
What do you mean by, like, integrity means doing what you say? You're saying like integrity what they promise?
Doing what you say. So like I even if you're going to be the bad guy, that if you say you're going to do it and that's what got you into office, do it.
Do it. Exactly. Do what you said to do.
Right. There's a line. When I was in my 20s, I'd go visit my mom and dad for supper. And after supper, dad would sit down with a cup of tea and listen to me droll on about, well, maybe I can do this, but then there is this. And then, but I want to do this, but then what happens if this? And I'd do that for an hour or so, just rambling on with the paralysis of analysis. And eventually he'd put his empty cup of tea down. He'd say, Tim, do something. If it's right, you'll know soon enough. If it's wrong, you'll know soon enough. But do something. So this endless saber rattling around the world in these places of conflict, where we have major world powers literally hiring buccaneers to do the job for them, right? You're literally this is the Caribbean, in a lot of ways, right? Where the French are hiring sailors and to do their fighting for them, and the British are hiring sailors to do their fighting for them. They're hiring buccaneers. These are mercenaries. Stop doing that.
That's one thing, and the other thing is, don't forget that I would say the PR era is finished. Communication doesn't work. In 2022, April 2022, all the Western media were saying that Russia would not have enough ammunition and it was finished. It was over. Russia at the time was launching 50 to 70,000 bomb per day compared to Ukraine, and they kept that pace. And they said, so when you look at this, like, Trump will have to, I would say, bring people to reason. They have to negotiate. He will not be able to stop a conflict that hard, because it's not only on the ground, it is political and diplomatic. All the links were maybe not all broken. Nord Stream was maybe a very bad thing. They thought it would go fast, and it did not go fast. No, but you can blame Russia. You can blame, but they fight not only with money. They fight with their soul also. So why I say, and that's why I think Timothy is right, that the fact that this conflict in Israel is also about the moral conduct of people. How are we morally? It affects Canadian too. How do we act morally in a civic way? We saw what happened. It was last week. It was in Brampton. This riot.
Which one?
I'm sorry, which one?
Like one every week. Oh, yeah.
Yes. So how do we? And this is a question. I think it is individual. Individually, we have to take a stand to change those behavior. And maybe Trump, like you said, he changed. I think he's more mature, like you said. Maybe he was a little bit more of a clown. It's not pejorative what I'm saying. In 2016, but don't forget, he had the Republican Party against him. Everybody was against him.
Yeah.
Everybody thought he was a clown. Today, even if we know that he's not an extraordinary intellectual, at least Timothy said, he will do what he said he will do. I think that will change a lot. He started a wall in 2016. Nobody wanted a wall, and he started a wall. Why? Because he knew that the border had to be secure. The sovereignty of United States was more important than the sovereignty of Ukraine. Then it shifted in 2020. And don't forget that the Maidan is 2014. It is 10 years.
Just wanted to say that looking back, a couple of things that the Biden administration did that was just ungodly or not in America's interest. One was a disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. Another one was sanctioning Russia, which led to the collapse of the SWIFT banking system. And a third one was just his involvement in Ukraine. Am I missing any?
Well, okay, so the American military-industrial complex builds $1 gazillion worth of equipment and weaponry and support. Militaries buy it and send it all over to Afghanistan, and they go, well, it's kind of quiet over here. We really like to build some more stuff, but all of our buyers, their warehouses are full. What should we do? And Biden says, I know what to do. We just leave it in the park and go somewhere else, and then we have to go buy more. Biden. You ask Biden what did he do wrong? For 2 years, he was digging in the oil, the strategic oil reserve of United States. The reserve was never that low. It was incredible, and he was digging. I was watching the index every day, and it was incredible how he was digging in the reserve, and even then the price of gas was going up. So digging in the reserve, what they call the strategic U.S. reserve, it was not
No president did that, not even Obama. So he was digging, and I would say in the reserve of the United States everywhere, because he knew that the economy was starting not only to slow down, but it's a question of trust too. Don't forget that they froze $300 billion of Russian assets, and now Zelensky is begging to have those $300 billion. Right? If they give it to him, Russia will never negotiate with, and nobody will trust any banks, Western banks anymore, because you never know. Anyway, we know, even Canadian banks, maybe we will have our bank account frozen for what? Just because having a good conversation. Who will trust somebody if it's a question of trust? Trump has to rebuild the trust of the United States.
So then what we're really coming down to is, do we trust Trump to do what he said he would do? Do we trust Trudeau to do what he said he would do? Because he said he will work with, that he will cooperate with America. So
will he cooperate
here in Canada, do we trust?
Will he cooperate or just obey?
Yeah, I was going to say, I 100% trust that Trudeau will obey the U.S.
Yeah, but what will be the language in between?
Yes, sir.
Probably not.
But I'm curious to see with the Nord Stream first, and after that, all the free trade agreement. We will have to change our policies in Canada. We will have to change them, because if we want fair trade with our neighbor, we have to be more open. And it doesn't mean that we have to sell our sovereignty, but we have to be more open and more transparent. And I wrote an article, the Canadian Perestroika, and I referred to the glasnost. Glasnost means transparency. We need to see through those people. Are they transparent? Now, I know we see through Trudeau. He's like a ghost. But if Poilievre is elected, will we see through him? What will happen with the Paris Accord with Trump? That will be funny, because he wanted to get out of it.
We're like way over time, but what do you think Trump's going to do with the World Health Organization? Because he pulled out of that and Biden just went back in.
Yes, and don't forget that I think the Ministry of Health of Trump will be Robert Kennedy Jr. And he was talking all the time about how to avoid processed food. I don't know what he will do with the, let's say, pharmaceutical cartel. That will be very interesting. You know, Stéphane Bancel, who is the CEO of Moderna, just resigned this week.
Oh, really? Probably better to resign now than be thrown in jail later.
We're waiting for Albert Bourla, maybe from Pfizer. You look at the stock, the share of Pfizer that dropped about 50 to 60% in 1 year. What will happen next? Bill Gates will be on trial in Netherlands. We have to go buy a little bit of champagne to celebrate. But like Timothée said, I think he has a lot of jobs to do to expose this.
Tim, do you want to maybe answer that, and then we can maybe end the show with a comment on Remembrance Day?
The names that are vacating are not a whole lot different than names that were vacating the first time he took office, right? And when this represents a major shakeup. If I was America and I was saying I'm going to be protectionist, but in order to be protectionist, I have to weaken the outside, then weakening the oligarchy in the mega corporations will be one way of doing that.
So WHO,
it's simple. If you extract yourself from the UN, every subsidiary under it falls away. Right? So you want to talk about being a puppet master, extract yourself from the UN. UNESCO, right? WHO, UNICEF, right? Oil for Food,
Monetary Fund, the
right?
Bank of International Settlement,
right?
all those big.
They all come away. They all come away.
You just pull one string and everything will fall.
That's right. That's right. So, I mean, if you really want tribalism, nationalism, you really want a protectionist to actually work and to not be this long drawn out process, you shut down the UN in the United States in New York and say we're done with you guys, get out.
Well, Putin was suggesting that they would just have to change the building of the UN because he said, he said, or maybe we put it in a more neutral on a more neutral territory. That was irony, of course, but
Like Atlantis.
that's a good. Oh, that's another debate. That's another debate.
Just put the UN in Atlantis for now, thanks.
Exactly.
Carve it off and push it into the Atlantic.
Right? Push it into the middle of the ridge.
You wanted
Okay. Go ahead.
You wanted to refer to the Remembrance Day.
Yeah, who wants to finish us off with some, I don't know, nice comments?
The
poet, the
three of us
philosopher.
are Canadian, and some of us have proud military histories, even prior to Confederation, which would be my family in Newfoundland. We just wanted to say thank you to the men and women of Canada who've served in the forces, whether it be on the air or in the sea or on the land. Thank you for what you've done. We understand your sacrifice and we're grateful for it. We know that you're having your own troubles with a government that doesn't respect your service, either culturally or financially. And we want to help you as much as we possibly can. And part of that is by educating your fellow citizens to activate and choose a government that will actually work in your favor. So on November 11th, we will make our appropriate remembrances. Thank you for your service.
I'll follow that up. Thank you for your service.
Yes, and I can add something. I think it is very important if we can speak today freely. It's because of them.
Yes.
Else we will not be here. So I thank them too.
And on that note, I guess we will end this Remembrance Day / U.S. election episode. Take care, everyone.
Goodbye.